believe that people that think, well, I'm squared away with my employees once they put the hours and I pay and I give them their check, is true. But at the same time, if you want to build a real team, one day, if you're the lucky one, and I was definitely the luckiest one, you have to give back because you will not have ever been able to do it without them.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. But I appreciate all of your support. We're now up to a little over 1,500 subscribers for the podcast channel. So we've grown that organically. So thanks to all of you for spreading the word and giving us ideas on how we can make ourselves better, because we don't get better unless we get feedback from you. So continue to hit the like button and subscribe button, and please share these videos. I'm really excited today. I'm so excited today that I usually do this, for my guest Antonio. I usually do this few minutes about, my books and get to my website, but I forget all that. We want to get to the heart of the matter.
But let me talk about your book. I read it. I enjoyed it. It was really good. And I'm waiting for the sequel.
I'm writing it as we speak, my friend.
Perfect.
My friend here is Antonio Acanero. I just recently met Antonio last year, actually, and it was through a mutual friend, Nicole, who works for Antonio. We met at a Police Foundation event. We actually got to meet Antonio, and I think all of you are going to be really pleased with what Antonio has to say. Antonio is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist. He's actually the newest member of our Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Foundation Board of Directors. So I'm very happy that you're on board.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I just think it'd be fascinating to, first of all, thank you for doing this. I know you're busy, so thank you for carving out Friday afternoon to do this. And then we're just gonna kind of delve into all things leadership and business, and maybe some people, not maybe, people are going to get some nuggets of value out of this. So first of all, welcome to the show. And
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Antonio, you've done a lot of things in your life. You continue to do a lot of things in your life, some of which I want to talk to, especially about some of your passions with like cars and motorcycles and stuff, but we'll get to that later. So tell us a little about your background, where you grew up and where you're educated, and that kind of stuff, your family.
First of all, I want to thank you for having me on this show. I've seen shows like yours in the past, and I found them very valuable. And I found that it doesn't matter how successful you are, how long you're in business and everything else, we can always learn something.
Right.
And part of learning is also being able to share and having people like you that spread all this information, because that's what you're doing. You're taking nuggets of information, like you said, and spreading it to everybody and making it available to everybody at no cost.
Thank you.
So I want to, first of all, say that I'm a very privileged person. I was born in a great family. Mm-hmm. My father was a doctor. My mom was a stay-home mom. So I've been blessed. I was born in Italy, 1959, had probably the best education possible as far as high school and elementary school. My father always believed education has to be the number one thing. And if I went to my dad and asked him, I want a watch or a book, I would get the book. Mm-hmm. And he always believed in that. We were always surrounded by books, by learning and everything else. I graduated high school in 1978, and I was lucky enough to come to the US to go to school. I went to school at USC in Los Angeles. I have a bachelor in computer science and a master's in applied math. And I was motivated enough and lucky enough to be able to finish my bachelor and my master's in 4 years.
Wow.
And being a foreigner, I had to apply for a green card. Mm-hmm. I was able to do that. And eventually I started my own business. I used to be a teacher teaching physics in a Catholic private school. They helped me with my green card. After the green card, I stayed there and I taught for 2 more years. And then I started my first business. It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey. I've been very, very lucky. Many times I've been in the right place at the right time, but there's no substitute for hard work.
Yep.
There's no substitute for commitment, and there's no substitute for focus.
Right.
I was married for 6 years. I divorced over 30 years ago. I just couldn't, I was not able to manage both married life, family life, and business.
Yeah.
And I had to make a choice. Looking back, I should have probably chosen my wife, but hey, it didn't go that way.
That's in the past. That's in the past.
It didn't go that way. So I've been single for many, many years. I don't have any children. And my focus has always been my work.
Awesome. So let's peel back a little bit, go back to your family. Obviously, very great family structure, which, you obviously, if there's a great family structure, there's more of a chance for the children to be successful. When you were growing up, surrounded by books and learning, and your parents were obviously very supportive, did you have an idea? I mean, you said you went to computer science and that in USC. Is that something you always wanted to do, or did you have ideas of what you wanted to do when you were in your formative years?
Well, I wanted to be a soccer player. That lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Maybe less.
Then I tried to be a basketball player since I'm fairly tall. That lasted less than the soccer player dream. I've been always more comfortable with numbers than the creative side. So I've always been drawn to physics, math, and a lot less by logic and literature or philosophy. So early on, I realized that my career would be more, as far as the school career or my education, would be geared more towards the engineering side or the math side or the physics side, rather than literature and everything else, or architecture. I'm a numbers guy. I'm not a very creative guy. So once I realized that about myself, it made my career choices a lot easier.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, throughout everybody's life, like I look back at my career. When I left government service, I didn't retire. I left after 22 years to get to Microsoft. I just didn't like the politics that were taking place. And that was a leap of faith because I didn't know anything about private sector, right? Seems to me your first leap of faith, if you want to call it that, was, deciding that you're going to do your bachelor's degree and master's, I guess, in both in US and USC. Was that a conscious decision on your part to not finish your education there in Italy, but come here or Europe?
Well, in the late 70s, Italy was going through some political problems. At that time, we had Red Brigades.
I remember.
We had some turmoil, serious turmoil. It looked like Italy was going to move towards the communist side, closer to Russia, more away from capitalism and the West. My father was a doctor. He was obviously very concerned about where the country was going. In those days, I was born in Milan. In those days, the Red Brigades used to shoot doctors and judges and chiefs of police on an ongoing basis. The chief of police was actually shot dead during the daytime in front of my grandmother's house.
Wow.
So I was obviously very young. I remember seeing those, but not knowing what it actually meant. So I was encouraged by my father to pursue my college career outside of Italy.
Okay.
So Europe was not going through the same issues that Italy had, but comparable.
Right.
France, comparable issues. The most stable country in the world and the country that gave the best growth and the best possibilities of advancing was, and I believe is still, the US. I've been lucky to be here. I had great education, and I still believe this is the best country in the world. I really do.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. You know,
Yeah.
no matter what people say, it is.
No, no, it's the best country in the world. I had a plant in a factory in Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
Thailand, and nothing compares to the US as far as career, as far as opportunity, and as far as being able um, to pursue your dreams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I came as a college student, not knowing where I was going, not knowing what would happen to me, alone in this country. And what I've been able to achieve is also because I was in the US. I would have never been able to achieve this in Italy. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. Well said, and I 100% agree. Um, when you got to the States, you finished your education. You said you were a teacher for a while.
Correct.
And what led you into that?
Well, I needed in
You
those
needed the
days.
money.
No, no. Well, teacher doesn't pay very well.
Yeah.
In those days, Italy had a mandatory military service.
Mm-hmm.
So as a boy, I had to go to the military. I was able to postpone it because of college.
Okay.
I've never been attracted to that kind of career. I believe it's necessary, like the police is necessary, a strong army is necessary, but that doesn't necessarily mean I want to be part of that. There's a lot
Sure.
of other opportunities and a lot of other jobs that are as important in different fields. So at that point, I decided to try and postpone my military career even after college. So I wanted to stay in the US because that's all I really knew after I grew
Sure.
up. Because
Right.
I spent 4 years in the US and I needed to pursue my green card to be a legal resident that eventually became a legal citizen. And I was able to get a job in the science field
Hmm.
because in those days there was a high request of teachers for physics and math and chemistry.
Okay.
So it was not that hard to get a job. And after that, they helped me apply for the green card. And after 2 years, I decided to go on my own.
Right. And so your first business, tell us how that came about. I think it's fascinating because I've been in, enterprises, but I never started my own enterprise.
Sure.
So I think it's fascinating to hear when folks like you, how does it come to mind and how do you make it work? Yeah.
It's not very glamorous at the beginning. I'm sorry. I decided Italy, one of the things that Italy is known for is shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So I started bringing some shoes, very, very small quantities from Italy and Asia, and sell them at swap meets.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Wow.
I could make it more glamorous and saying I decided to go head on in the retail world, but
Right.
at the end
But
of
no.
the day, it was basically swap meets in the LA area,
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday with my wife at that point, girlfriend that then became my wife. We used to pack the shoes in the back of our old car and try to go out and sell them.
Wow.
And I've always enjoyed the feeling you get talking to people, and so it was always fun. Eventually, realized that we couldn't really make the business grow. Her brother was in the import-export business, call it grammar. Basically, he was importing metal fasteners from Taiwan.
Okay.
And selling them to some companies here in the US. And I decided to join him. We became partners, and then we started growing from there.
Okay.
But not very glamorous start. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's okay. It's actually good for especially some of the younger folks in our audience to hear that kind of stuff, right? Because, like you said at the very beginning, it's hard work, right?
Yeah, but it's fun work. It's hard, fun work.
But it's fun. Yeah,
yes,
and,
yes.
you have to. I think one of the things that it's always disappointing when you hear someone say, they spent 20, 30 years in a career, but they really hated most of their time there. I mean, it's just like you wasted your life. Right? It doesn't make sense. So you have to enjoy it. Good days and bad days, but you just have to enjoy what you do.
Yes.
So you're with your brother for your
brother-in-law,
brother-in-law, ex-brother-in-law for a while, and then what came after that?
Well, basically, one of our customers that we used to resell metal fasteners that we brought from Asia decided to sell, and he gave us a very sweet deal. At least spread the payments out for a certain amount of time, because obviously we didn't have any capital.
Sure.
And at that time, I was there, my wife came in, and my brother-in-law was there with his wife. So the four of us basically dove into the business, and we were committed enough and we were lucky enough that the business grew. And by growing the business, first big account we were able to land that was Disney.
Oh, wow.
Disney parks in LA. So it was, the business was called Western Badge and Trophy.
Okay.
Los Angeles. So we were making badges, trophies, those buttons, like buttons and everything else. And we were able to, and we were lucky enough to get some nice contracts. We were able to deliver them, and we grew that way. Wow. So one of the opportunities that came at that point was also that we were making badges, obviously, for department stores, for McDonald's, for fast food places. We were approached by some of these fast food places saying, I'm tired of paying $1 for a badge that just tells me my employee name. I want the badge to do more functions that just tell my customers the name. I want to be able to start using maybe for time and attendance rather than just the badge. At that point, there were no barcodes. So the only thing that was available at the time was the magnetic stripe, which I just started in credit cards. But that restricted to the size. Credit card is 3 3/8 by 2 1/8. So the badge could not be over 30 mil thick because of the magnetic stripe. So basically the badge was forced to become the size of a credit card. So we dove into that without knowing what we were doing, because it was a totally different world. Found a company in San Diego that was manufacturing very, very small quantities of plastic cards and was going under. Bought that company. I moved to San Diego, and then realized that the world of credit cards is much, much, much larger than the world of badges.
Yes, right.
Actually, no comparison. I'll give you an example. We would make badges for, say, Walmart. We would make maybe 300,000-400,000 badges a year. We were making 20, 30, 40 million gift cards for Walmart. So that gives you the ratio between available in plastic cards compared to badges. Right. So once we entered that world, then decided to doing less and less badges and concentrate on the plastic cards. And the company grew, and the market grew. The market for plastic cards became incredibly large. I'm sure you remember prepaid phone cards. And this became huge. MCI, which I don't think exists anymore, was one of the leaders in that. Then after that, we were lucky enough, the next industry was frequent flyers with loyalties and everything else. After that, we ended up with keys that open hotel doors that didn't exist. And after that, we went to gift cards, which exploded. And there's so much use for insurance cards, for driver's licenses and everything else, and of course, financial cards. So the world of credit cards or plastic cards grew exponentially. I was at the right place at the right time, and my company grew. We went from having one credit card each to having probably 2, 3 credit cards, plus an insurance card, plus a driver's license, plus a gift card. And these are all basically plastic cards.
How long were you in this sector?
I started in 87, and 12 employees, 10 of us, 10 employees, me and my assistant, which after 37 years is still with me right now. And sold in 2007 and had about over 650 employees just in the US, plus plants outside the US.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. But like I said, the market grew despite some of the mistakes I made and despite a lot of things, the market grew exponentially for plastic cards.
Right.
And the good thing about plastic cards is the fact that none of my customers wanted the product to be made abroad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is not a product that could be made in China or made in wherever and brought to the US, just
Right.
because of security reasons and everything else.
Interesting.
So all the growth was in the US. So by the time I sold in 2007, I had 3 plants in the US and plants abroad.
Jeez. Yeah, exponential growth for sure.
Yes.
So
Good
also from good
right.
growth. Yeah,
Yes.
you're right. You're right. Good. It was you're very advantageous that you were there during this period of time. But from a leadership perspective, so as you're starting to grow, you got to hire people, obviously. So you're hiring people obviously for their skill sets. But eventually you get big enough that you guys can't manage everything by yourselves, right? You've got to hire. I mean, you have to hire managers, or you have to grow people to become managers to run your operations.
Yes. Yes.
So what, at that point, and it's probably still the same, what do you look for when you're looking to hire for leadership?
Well, at the beginning, it was really hard because I was 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm interviewing people that are 40, 45,
Yeah.
and kind of resented the fact that someone younger is interviewing them and everything else. But that didn't last very long, because at the end, when you start working with people, they have respect for you and then they work with you.
Right.
So my young age was not an obstacle after a while.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this date, I believe I need to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And I still do that now after all these years. I'm old school. Okay, I was born in 1959. When I started, there was still the culture of don't tell your employees how much money you make. Don't tell them what's going on. Always play everything down, or we're not doing well and everything else. Or they'll always come and ask you for this and ask you for that. But the mentality, number one, has never sat well with me. And number two, it doesn't work in today's world. So I've always shared everything with my employees. They know how much money I made. They knew where money went. As far as we made $1 million profit, but we had to buy this piece of equipment. We have to pay taxes and everything else. So they saw where the money went, and they were able themselves to calculate their bonus before they had it by the financials that I shared with them. And that, I believe, helped build a strong team. And seeing you as the owner reinvest your capital gave them more of a security and a knowledge that, okay, this guy's committed to the business. This is not a guy that wants in fast in and out.
Right.
And I was able to build a very strong team, without which I would have never been able to be as successful as I am. I mean, I believe that the people that surrounded me is what made me successful, especially when you have this many people. There is no way you can control everything, and you don't want to control everything, because after a while, some people become actually better than you at the job they're doing.
Yeah, that's what you hire them for.
But it has to work the other way too. I sold my company in 2007 for a very, very good price. I took a large portion of what I was given and divided it through all my employees, depending on how long they worked for me, depending on the position, and depending how many years they've been with me.
Wow.
So
good for you.
It has to go both ways. It has to go both ways. I believe that people that think, well, I'm squared away with my employees once they put the hours and I paid and I give them their check, is true. But at the same time, if you want to build a real team, one day, if you're the lucky one, and I was definitely the luckiest one, you have to give back, because you will not have ever been able to do it without them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they have to feel that they have a stake in the company, and the company's not just using them to fix a widget or develop a widget, but that they care about people, right?
Well, they didn't know that this was coming. They were all surprised when some people got a $300,000 bonus when I sold. And my assistant, which is still with me, I pay their house off. So, of course, I'm the one that made the most money, and I'm the one that took the most risk. But at the same time, I would have never been able to make it by myself.
Right.
So it was fair on my side, I believe, to reward all these people that helped me achieve what I would never believe I would have been able to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, these are great leadership lessons that unfortunately are lost on some so-called leaders because it's all about them and it's all about their status and them looking good, or they micromanage, which is something else I hate, because if you hire the right people like you did and you trust them, they're trained, like you said, let them grow and drive the business. But the other part of it is you don't have time to micromanage everything.
Well, I was really lucky because one of my best friends now used to be my CFO. I used to micromanage everything because obviously I started with 12 people. So I used to micromanaging everything. I used to go in on Saturday, Sunday when nobody was there and still work. And I was proven wrong by my ex-CFO and one of my best friends right now, and a person I fully trust. When I asked him, I want you to do things this way, and I want you to follow what I tell you. And he told me, let me try my way. And I wasn't happy about it. He didn't do things the way I said, but I cannot deny the results. Okay? The results were not, I wouldn't say better than mine. Of course, I would not say better than mine. But I have to admit they were much better than mine.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
At that point, I started realizing that by micromanaging, number one, I wouldn't be able to grow. And number two, I would not be able to surround myself by good people by constantly micromanaging them.
Oh, yeah, they'll leave.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's one of the bases for growth, being able to let them do it, supervise them, be there, try to guide them, but let them do what they feel is right. And I ended up learning from him.
Yeah. See, that's perfect. I mean, you surround yourself with great leaders and let them do their thing. And it's, you've got other things to do. You have the strategy piece. You're looking, at the 20,000 foot level. And you plus I love that thing about, there are times when I've had my direct reports say, boss, I know you want to go this direction, but we're thinking maybe this. Yes. And I'm pushing back, but I'm thinking, okay, they have the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are doing the work every day. They know more than I do. So all right, let's go this direction. Hell, they're right.
Yes, there was a lot in the choice of equipment to bring in because they were on every days. They were running the day-to-day operation, so they had a lot more know-how and a lot more hands-on experience than me on what kind of equipment to bring in. But at the same time, being able to trust them gave me the freedom to plan where I wanted the company to be in 3, 4, 5 years. Right. And sometimes you need to detach yourself a little bit from everyday operation to see where you want the company to go and being able to start guiding it towards that. When you're in an everyday operation and you seem to lose some of the perspective because you're so focused on what you're doing today, what you're doing tomorrow, and how to solve this present problem, that you don't have the time and you lose the perspective of where you really want to go. And that was my number one job. My number one job, of course, was making sure that the company didn't go bankrupt because a lot of people were depending on the job. But at the same time, be able to chart a path towards the future. And that path has to be flexible. Sure. You say 5 years from now, I want to be here. But at the end of the day, after 6 months, you might say, no, I don't want to be here. I want to be there. Right. But the freedom of making those decisions, the freedom of going out and seeing where the industry is going is only because I had really, really good people that I trusted and that delivered a very good product.
Yeah, I agree. So 2007, you sold the business. What was next?
Well, wasn't that simple. In 2000s, I was at a crossroad.
Okay.
So at that point, I had 3 factories in the US, 1 in Brazil. And at that point, I had 2 options. Number 1, take the company public, raise money, and do a worldwide expansion, meaning buying competitors or opening factories around the world, especially in Asia, or sell, or keep what I had.
Sure.
So at that point, I realized that my strength is not, I cannot run a plant or I cannot run a company sitting at the desk and looking at numbers. That's just not me. So I had 650 employees in the US, and it was growing too big for me. Honestly, I'm very good at a certain size. After a certain size, I kind of lose the touch. And when I lose the touch, I'm not as good.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I decided it's easier for me to sell. The company needed to make the next step, and I was not the right leader to make that step. Of course, it's a lot easier to make that decision and say I was not the right leader when a venture capitalist throws you a ton of money. It's a lot easier to make that decision. So I got to a point where I said, oh my God, with this much, I'll never be able to spend this money in my whole life and more. So that was not a hard decision to make. They asked me to stay on board and be their CEO, since I was the one that founded the company. And at that point, I said, why don't we do this? I keep 51%, you guys at 49, and I'll be the CEO. They said, no, why don't we do it the other way? And so, okay, I'll just leave. And basically, they took the company public. The company still exists, and the company is doing very well, very well. But I know that under my leadership, it would have not been able to grow the same way it did, because I would have been more of a hindrance than someone that makes the company grow. My brain is not geared that way.
Sure.
I think you need a different kind of leader after a stage.
I think it takes a lot of emotional intelligence on your part to actually make that decision. A lot of people wouldn't go that route,
Not when they give you that many zeros. I'm sorry. I cannot take credit where there is no credit. I'm sorry.
This point well taken. Thank you.
It's one of those things, I grew up with very little money. I mean, work-wise, I was, like I said, very fortunate. I had a very good family. There's nothing that I cannot say I struggled as a kid. The opposite. But when you start your career and you're thrown that much money, you can't just pass it up. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You'd be foolish to do that.
Correct. And there's a point where you say, I have to take the chips off the table. You cannot double down and bet every single time. There's a point where you say, I had enough. Maybe that's why I won't make a good gambler. Because there's a day when I said, I'm going to cash in the market.
And right decision, right? It turned out to be right decision.
I don't know, but I don't have any regrets. It was the right decision for me.
Right.
It was the right decision for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, and that has to be the final decision, the tiebreaker, right? If it's the right decision for you.
Yes.
So then where'd you go from there?
Well, then I had a problem. I was too young, because at that time I was 48 years old.
Okay.
I'm retired. I worked my whole life. I'm sorry, but I have no hobbies. And all of a sudden, I don't know what to do.
Right.
So I bought myself a house in Phuket, probably the nicest house in the island. At that time, there was a famous Corona commercial, which, since you're my age, you probably remember.
I do.
On the feet of these people, the blue water, the Corona sitting between them. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. That lasted about 6 months, and I drove everybody crazy. So I said, I don't want to be as involved as I used to be. I don't want to stress as much as I used to. I paid my dues. Now I want to have an easier life with less stress. And at that point, again, I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. In 2008, 2009, I decided to shift my capital into real estate.
Okay.
In 2008, 2009, as we know, was the Lehman Brothers, was the huge real estate crisis and collapse. So I ended up buying a lot of commercial real estate in town and out of town for less than replacement value. So once again, I got really lucky in life. I bought a lot of properties that were not performing at the time with 70, 80% vacancy. Mm-hmm. But at the end, when you're buying a property for less than it costs to build and the land is thrown in for free, you can't eventually go wrong. Eventually, the market will come back up as long as you have the staying power. So I bought a lot of property and I got very lucky because the property, especially I have property in Vegas, Reno, LA, and in Denver, the market rebounded. The property market rebounded. I started getting a lot of tenants, and that's basically what I do now. So I was once again extremely lucky.
Yeah.
I was sitting on a lot of cash when the market collapsed, and I didn't know anything about real estate. I just said, well, that doesn't seem like a job that's going to take a full time. It is going to take my full time and attention. Mm-hmm. And I entered that market, and I'm still in that market. And I was very lucky. Again, I've been extremely lucky my whole life.
Well, yeah,
your audience how to be as lucky as me, but I have to admit that's what happened. I didn't know anything.
There's luck. There's always that luck factor, but then there's always so you get the luck part, but then you got to execute on that luck.
Yeah. Yes. Right? Yes. Of course. Yeah. So I entered the real estate market. I'm still in the real estate market, and I entered at the right time. I really did. Yeah. So the value of the properties doubled, tripled, and
beautiful.
Yes. So I wish I could take credit. I saw the market crashing, so I decided to do this. No, not at all. I'm sorry.
At least you're honest about it. That's good.
I was sitting on I sold my company in June of 2007. Mm-hmm. If I waited another 3 to 6 months, when the market started collapsing, the venture capitalists would have not been able to get the financing to do the company, to purchase the company. So I was very lucky on that. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting on this pile of cash. I don't know what to do with it. And the safest investment was real estate. And it was the perfect time to buy it also. So a lot of luck at that time. A lot of luck.
Yeah. But again, you have to learn. Eventually, you have to learn something about the real estate market, right? And
sure. Well, I was somehow in real estate because I owned all the buildings.
Right. Yeah.
But when you own the building, you own the business. It's a lot easier. A lot easier. But yes, you have to learn. Every business has its ways of doing things.
Right.
Little headaches. It's little, But it takes a little adjustment. But as long as you're fair with your tenants, as long as you provide a good product, the basis is always the same.
Right.
So now
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Get close to the tenants, be fair to them, give them a good product, and they'll generally be fair to you.
Okay. Yeah. So now you're in this new enterprise, and you're kind of doing what you did. I would assume you have to do what you did with the first enterprises. You have your assistant that you've had for all these years, but you got to build another team, right?
Well,
or no?
Yes and no, but it's not. My whole team is 5 people.
Okay.
The good thing about commercial real estate, if you choose it right, there's not that much maintenance on your side.
Okay.
Family, apartments have a lot more maintenance, but commercial real estate doesn't have that much of maintenance. You usually sign multi-year leases, and the maintenance is not that hard. So you don't need a whole team of plumbers, air conditioning people, and so forth and so forth. Everything we run is with 5 people. So it's fairly simple and straightforward.
Yeah. Do you travel much in your, I know, do you travel a lot?
I'm always gone.
Yeah.
So I still have a factory, large percentage of a factory in Thailand. Mm-hmm. And I invested in Europe a little bit. So I follow my investments. I don't travel that much for fun because I wouldn't know where to go for fun. But But at the same time, I do travel a lot. My whole family lives in Italy.
Okay.
But let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the fun side of having a business.
Okay.
I believe that to be successful, you cannot take your eye off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I've known guys that were successful. They took their eyes off the ball too early and lost what they had. But there definitely has to be a risk and reward. Okay, it cannot only be work and it cannot only be fun.
Right.
So it's important, I think, for a business person to spoil themselves, because after a while, the zeros in the bank don't mean anything. Okay, I'll give you an example. I sold my company. The down payment was $80 million. What does that mean? I have no idea.
Right.
It's a bunch of zeros. Did it change my life? No. That was the down payment. I no, it didn't change my life. But being able to reward yourself is very important as a motivation to keep going. Okay. And that's important that people realize that too. It cannot only be work, it can only be fun, but it's important to reward yourself once in a while with something, so that it gives you the motivation to go towards the next thing. Okay. Without taking your eye off the ball.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when we see extremely successful people with a yacht and with this and with that private jet, and people say, well, he doesn't need that, he doesn't need that. He does. He does. He needs motivation for the next step. He needs and it's not done to impress other people. It's done because you need it for yourself. Otherwise, you lose the perspective and you lose the drive. You lose the drive. Zeros after a while don't mean anything. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're very important. And my biggest achievement in life is being able to be financially secure. Mm-hmm. That's the number one thing that lets me sleep at night. But being able to reward yourself is what you need to bring you to the next level. That's the important thing. And then eventually, as you've seen, giving back to the community is just as important. Yeah. Just as important. So the two have to go hand in hand. You work hard, reward yourself hard, but remember that the community is your biggest supporter, and the community is what helps you get where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, like, I'm into watches. That's my main thing. Like, my wife and I, we love watches. We love Omegas, and that's we kind of reward ourselves when on time to time with that. With you, how do you reward yourself? I think I already know, but they don't know.
I'm into everything.
Okay. What's everything?
I collect watches too.
Okay. Yeah.
I have about 20 watches. I collect motorcycles. I have over 150 motorcycles. I collect art. And of course, my passion is Ferraris. You know that.
Ferraris. Which, by the way, my wife and I think we talked about it. So, we're into F1, and we've been Lewis Hamilton fans.
Oh, wow.
We have a Mercedes, but now we decided we're going to have to switch over to Ferrari because that's where he's going next year.
I agree with you. So it's been a dream as a little boy, like every little boy, to own a Ferrari for me, coming from Italy. I went to my first F1 race at Monza, which was right next to where I was born in Milan, when I was a little kid. In those days, you could walk into the pits, you could see the cars, you could almost touch the cars. It was a different industry. The smell of the oil, of burning oil, the smell of gasoline, all these things that you carry as a little kid for your whole life. And one of the things that motivated me the most, and it sounds stupid looking back, but it really worked in my days, was I wanted to be able to have a Lamborghini by the time I was 30. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because I remember as a kid, I went with my father at one of the first car shows in Italy, and they had the Lamborghini Miura. And I told my father, I want that. And, in those days, he gave me a slap on the head and said, let's keep going. And brought me to the Fiat stand. So I was so impressed by the way the car looked. I was so impressed by all these things. It was a spaceship, especially in those days compared to what a Fiat 500, talking a Fiat 500 of the 1960s, 70s looked like. Mm. And one of the biggest driving forces behind my motivation was being able to achieve that, which is a stupid achievement, but is what keeps you going. is what keeps me going. I want to do this. I want to prove to myself that I can do it and I can make it by myself. So it's these little steps and these little motivations that bring you to the next level. And so I was able to achieve that, be able to buy my Lamborghini Countach 25th anniversary when I was 30.
Wow.
So, but once again, I'm very, very lucky, very, very lucky, very lucky that I've been able to do that. And I've always had this passion for cars, this passion for engines. I remember the smell of a two-stroke engine, you know, the gasoline and the oil. So I've always been a car and motorcycle guy. So being able to achieve this is, you know, another dream come true for me.
Yeah, but like you said, it's a balance. You know, you got to work the hard. You reward yourself appropriately, and then, you know, I don't think a lot of our audience knows that you're big time into philanthropy. You've been that way for a long, long time.
Well, I have a couple of things that are close to me. Number one is the homeless problem. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. So a lot of these others are lost to me. I mean, I don't appreciate a lot of things that I don't understand, and I was never, I've never been presented with some of those issues.
Right.
I'm very close to the homeless problem, which I still believe this is the best country in the world. We help the rest of the world, but sometimes we don't help our own people. And that's one thing which I find hard to understand. Okay, it's not a simple problem. Okay, it's not something where, and it's not a problem where you just throw money at and walk away. But there's no reason why in the US there should be a single homeless person.
Amen to that. Yep.
But that's another story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, also police is extremely important to me. I'm not a political guy. I mean, we're in a country where politics is not as fundamental as it is in some countries in Europe. Italy has 13, 14 parties. They never reach an agreement. Nobody ever has the majority. It's always this party with this party with this party to get to the majority, and the government always fall apart. Okay, so we don't have that problem in this country. This country, even politically, is one of the best countries in the world. I mean, the goal for both parties should be, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or if you're Democrat, let's stay in the middle and let's do what's good for the people.
Yeah.
So I try not to get involved in politics, and I believe that the police department is something we absolutely need, and it's something that it's taken for granted. It's something that's overlooked, but it's something that we definitely need. And that's why, thanks to your support, thanks to the help of a lot of people, I've been able to be on the board. It's an honor, and I take that honor very seriously.
Yeah, no, we're amen to that, especially in the last couple of years where in some circles, and usually that's fringe, the police have been maligned a lot for unfair reasons, I think. So it's good to have you with your viewpoints, you know, on the board, because the more diversity we have on the board in terms of diversity of thought, the better we are as an organization to help the police department, I think.
And that doesn't mean that there isn't a 1% of bad apples in the police, but
90%
is solid, is good, wants to help the community, is part of the community, and their heart is in the right place. Yeah. And not only I believe that, I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've already done a lot for the community, police department, even before you got involved with the foundation. So, you know, that's wonderful. So the other part of it is, because I visited your office, and let me tell you something, this office is fantastic, not just because you see the motorcycles and all that, but you've got this great gym. So a big part of leadership to me is, you know, obviously keeping this fit, but you got to keep the body fit. So tell us a little bit about how you keep yourself healthy.
Well, there was this saying that I don't remember who said it, but it always was stuck in my head, that we pursue richness and we sacrifice our health. And one day we use all this richness to get the health that we sacrifice.
Yeah.
So it's
I like that. I haven't heard that. I like it. Yeah.
It's like everything else. Work and fun has to go hand in hand. Work and health has to go hand in hand. It's the only thing that you cannot pay someone to do. You can pay a trainer, but you have to do it yourself. And I've been very lucky again. I've been very disciplined since I was a little kid.
Okay.
And I've always enjoyed being healthy and everything else. And I still work out every day. I still try to stay in the best shape I can. Mm-hmm. I do have my vices, okay? As you very well know.
Yes.
But I stay away from smoking. I stay away from drugs. I stay away from alcohol. Mm-hmm. So I live, some people might think, a very disciplined life, but it fits me. It fits my personality. Yep. And at the same time, it allows me to have a good quality life for, I believe, as long as I can. Yeah. So that's very, very important to me. I don't have a trainer. I get up every morning. I go to the gym. I enjoy it. Some days it's easier than others, but I have to do it. I have to do it. It's a long-term investment, like every business is a long-term investment.
It is.
Nobody gets rich in one day. Nobody gets healthy in one day.
Yeah, exactly. So the last thing before we wrap this up, because I think it's been great, because you've actually touched on all the different leadership things that we like to touch on in terms of, building business, but also, what you look for in people that are working for you, mistakes that you've made that you learn from, mentors, that type of thing. And, giving back in your idea of leading, servant leadership, basically. That's kind of what people call it. But now the restaurant business, how'd you get involved in restaurant business?
Well, I'm extremely anal, as you know me by now.
No, I haven't figured that out.
Sure. I don't like to dirty my kitchen. Right. I'm the guy that, as a little kid, gets up in the morning, makes his own bed. Everything has to be in the right place. If a magazine is turned off, I have to turn it backwards. So, I don't like to dirty my kitchen, like I said, but it's also the social side of it.
Sure.
When I was in the credit card world, I used to be home 3 days a month because I traveled all over the world. I had plants all over the world. I was never home. So it was hard for me to meet people in, let's call it my home base, which was Los Angeles, and then it became Las Vegas, not having any kids, not having a wife. So my whole life was work. Mm-hmm. So I've had many restaurants, but I invested in the restaurant you've been at that's called Siena, mostly for the social side of it. It's a good way to meet people. It's a good way to be part of the community. I used to live in a gated community, and I had all these incredible cars in the garage, and the guy is never home. He takes the car out at 2, 3 in the morning because I'm so jet lagged. At 2, 3 in the morning, I'm awake, so I take the car out, and sometimes I wonder what my neighbors thought about me.
Yeah, right.
He must be selling drugs or something.
Drug dealer.
Fancy cars. He's never home. He comes and goes at 2, 3 in the morning.
Call Metro.
So the restaurant gave me the social side of it, which I was lacking because of the business I was in.
Right.
And of course, it's always, I love the restaurant business. It's fun. People usually go there in a good mood. They come, they have a drink, they relax. We have a nice neighborhood restaurant. And once again, it's a very successful restaurant, not because of me. I cannot take credit in that either. I've been very lucky. I have a partner which is very good at what he does. He's very honest. He's a great worker. I have to push him to take a day off, and he still won't take it. So once again, I've been extremely lucky in that too. And it's a fun business, the restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would encourage anybody who comes to Las Vegas, or if you live here, to go to Siena, because food is fantastic. In fact, I think we're planning on hopefully going there next week.
I hope so. At some point. As soon as Jack gets better, we're ready to go. Yeah.
She's actually walking up and about, so I think it's good.
Good.
Hey, Antonio, I really want to thank you for taking your time. I've learned a lot, and I know our audience has learned a lot too, from a leadership and business perspective. Yes, there's been a lot of luck, obviously, in your career, but like you said at the very beginning, that luck has to be married with hard work, dedication, and putting in the hours. You got to put in the hours. You got to do the heavy lifting before you can become successful. And I think a lot of younger folks nowadays, not just younger folks, but a lot of folks think, I want to get there, and I want to get there tomorrow. you're not going to get there tomorrow.
And a lot of the social media, let me add one thing. A lot
Yeah.
of the social media is really misleading. I remember all these rappers, just to take a category, they have fantastic homes, fantastic cars, and they don't belong to them. I remember I was in Los Angeles in my factory and I was driving a Lamborghini, and one of these video producers came to me and said, "Hey, can we rent the car from you?" And the car was actually used in a rap video.
Okay.
So my house was rented in one of those places where they did the crib thing. So
Okay.
these
okay.
homes don't necessarily belong to these rappers, don't necessarily belong to what is portrayed to be. They belong to business people. They belong to people that really work every day in the trenches. So this idea of I'm going to become a rapper and make all this money is not necessarily true. There's only one way to make money. Roll up your sleeves and keep doing it.
Yeah.
And what you see on social media is not necessarily true. It's exciting because that's what it's selling. It's a dream. That's what it's selling, but it's not necessarily reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that's a good lesson for people to learn. I try to limit my social media because I'm on social media, obviously, with Twitter and doing this kind. But you got to limit yourself because, you know, it's a tool, but it could also be a vice. And you got to be real careful.
Separate the false news from the real news.
Exactly.
Just because you see it, dig and figure out what is real about it and what is not real about it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you for allowing me to do this.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's another. Sorry, go ahead.
I said I'll see you, but thank you.
All right. Well, this is another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. We'll put this out very soon. And for you, Antonio,
if your viewers has any questions, feel free to give him my email address.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do that. We'll make sure we get it to you before you see it. And for the audience, make sure you check out MikeHowardAuthor.com. It's got all of the videos that we've done to date, plus links to the books. And currently writing, hopefully another. Hopefully it'll be a bestseller to Blood Promise.
And when can we expect it? Now we're putting pressure on you. When can we?
I know you're putting pressure on me, man. Well, I'm 13 chapters in, so we're looking at probably May, June, I think.
Wow. Of this year.
Yeah.
It's within a couple of months.
Yeah.
Perfect. Is it going to be equal of the first one or just another independent story?
It's it's all part of a series, obviously.
Yes.
It'll allude to some of the things, but it's a completely independent story and takes place in Italy because we went to Italy last year.
Yes.
I got some ideas.
Perfect.
So it starts in Milan. It will probably end up in Venice, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow. Looking forward to reading it. Absolutely. I loved your first book.
All right. Thank you. All right. Till next time. We'll see you next time on another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast.
Thank you again.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording here. Let's see. And